I found Dr. Roop in the observation lounge, a room towards the back of the ship that had a large wall where I supposed a large window would appear when we returned to normal space. Dr. Roop had set aside his earthly business suit and now wore a pants and shirt and jacket combination, which had strange angles and contours, but it was, in his own alien way, quite dapper. The suit was olive green and the shirt was red. He had a handkerchief in the jacket pocket. Everywhere he went, Dr. Roop remained a natty dresser. He was typing away furiously on a blue keyboard projected by his data bracelet, and he showed every indication of being busy, but he looked up when I entered.
"What can I do for you, Zeke?"
"I leveled up," I told him. "I need to know what I do now."
"Congratulations!"
He cleared a space for me to sit by him.
"If you concentrate your gaze at those numbers, you'll gain access to the leveling process. Pick the skill you want and focus on it to select it. But before you do any of that, you're going to want to use your bracelet to study the skill tree and decide how precisely you want to advance."
"Where can I look at the skill tree?"
"When you go to level up, it will pull up the skill tree automatically, but we can take a look at it right here."
He clicked a few keys on his keyboard, and a 3D projection of a flowchart began to hover between us. I stared at it in confusion for a couple of seconds. "I'm not sure what all this means," I said.
"Well, it's rather straightforward," he said. "If you choose strength, the nanites will make alterations to your overall musculature, and you will become stronger. If you choose to augment your hearing, you will hear more clearly across a wider range. You can ask the system to overlay suggestions for specific career paths. For example, if you want to move towards career in starship operations, you can see how best to level."
He typed a few keys, and various intellect, agility, health, and perception skills were now glowing yellow. So I become like a cyborg, part machine? I was both terrified and excited by this prospect.
"Oh, not at all,"
Dr. Roop explained.
"The changes are biological. There remains no mechanical superstructure to prop up the new skills. The nanites simply alter your muscular fiber, optic nerves, synaptic firing rates, and so on, in order to increase, if only marginally, your capacity in whichever skill you select. You must have some ability in the first place, of course. The members of your species cannot, for example, sense electromagnetic fields, so augmenting that skill would be pointless."
I nodded. "So, just how much stronger or smarter will I become?"
"You will likely not feel significantly different after a single leveling, or even after 10 levelings, but over time they do accumulate most remarkably."
"But how can these nanites rewrite what I am and what I can do?" Dr. Roop widened his eyes in his giraffe equivalent of a smile.
"We're not entirely sure how the process is effected. We only know that it works."
Another example of former technology, I thought. Another way in which the Confederation, as Mrs. Price suggested, were inheritors of greatness rather than being great themselves. But was it so wrong that they were willing to take advantage of scraps left to them by the lords of Handwavium? In his show, Colony Alpha, my father had depicted two civilizations engaged in an arms race to acquire the remnants of a mysterious and vanished culture. But it appeared that the Confederation was merely making use of the resources they had available. If the nanites can improve my brain function, couldn't they also change who I am? Could someone use the nanites to implant ideas or turn me into an assassin against my will or something? He laughed.
"That, no doubt, is something you might find in one of your science fiction tales, Zeke, but it is not how things work in the Confederation. We've been using this process for centuries, and no one has ever had their personality subverted. It is not possible. Nothing is being added to your personality or emotional makeup. You remain you, only working more efficiently."
"And what about when I go home?" I asked.
"Well, if in the course of the year on Confederation Central you dedicate yourself to improving your physical condition, you will leave with more musculature than you currently possess. If you dedicate yourself to learning, you will improve your intelligence. We would not seek to take those organic improvements away from you, and this is similar. You would have earned the changes you make, so they are yours. The nanites, however, will be neutralized, so you will not be able to continue to use the skill tree."
Now that was interesting. Did I want to level up in ways that would help me best here, or so that I would have an advantage when I got back to Earth? Probably the first option, since I saw it helping my planet get into the Confederation. If I didn't, I'd just be wasting the opportunity I'd been given. Knowing that, however, didn't really help me figure out what skill I should choose. That seems like a huge decision, I said. Do I have to make it now?
Oh, no, of course not, he said. You'll keep accumulating points, but if you don't apply the skill, your level won't change, and everyone will think you're still level 1. You may consider that embarrassing.
Oh, no, I don't care about that, I said. Though, of course I did, a little. I didn't want Charles and the rest thinking I was stuck on level 1. Though, I also didn't want them to think level 2 was the best I could do. I looked at the skill tree again, and thought about those final options at the bottom. Former strength, former intellect, and former agility. Is it better to diversify, I asked, or to try and max out a single skill? I mean, what if I just worked towards becoming as smart as a former?
Oh, you won't reach the former levels. It's not possible.
Then why are they on the chart? Dr. Roop lowered his neck, which I began to realize meant he was feeling apologetic or uncertain.
They are theoretical maximums, not achievable goals. You can only choose the former achievements once you have otherwise completed 7 of the trees. That means you would need to be level 75, and then, having reached 75, you would have to level up again. It cannot be done. Sentient races just don't live that long.
So no one has ever done it?
No, not since the time of the formers, and perhaps not even then. The greatest known level ever reached is 66, and that was centuries ago. A being reaching 60 is a Confederation-wide media event. It happens only once or twice in a generation, and I've never personally met anyone over level 54.
The Confederation had clearly inherited the system and not played around with it very much. Are you telling me that with all your technology, no one has ever tweaked the system? Created a god mode like in video games so they could max it out?
The skill tree is one of the fundamental cornerstones of our culture. In many ways it defines who we are, beings who achieve and improve with hard work. Tampering with it would be a most serious crime.
Bring this system to Earth, I thought, and some hacker would crack it in 2 weeks. Half hour after that, you could pirate former status on the internet. I didn't mention this since it wouldn't be doing my planet any favors. What skill should I start with? I asked.
Well, it depends on what you want to achieve. If you're not worried about how you look, it may be best to wait until you reach the station and get a better sense of what kind of tasks you want to pursue. But don't put it off too long. Keep in mind that accumulating skills makes reaching new levels easier. Even if you can't sense your growing improvements, they do make a difference. Perpetual hoarders keep their options open, but ultimately they fall behind.
Okay, I'll think about it a little more. I paused for a minute, not sure how I wanted to ask my next question. I liked Dr. Roop, and I did not want to stop liking him. I was afraid what I would hear if I pressed him on what was on my mind. Still, I had to know. How come you didn't tell me the others were going to treat me like this? He sighed and lowered his neck again. He appeared genuinely sad.
I didn't know, Zeke, and I certainly did not want to give them any ideas. No two species are alike, and you can never tell how things are going to go. They were resourceful enough to look up and examine past statistics, and they made their own decision. I did try to discourage them, but I can't demand they do anything. Things will be better on the station.
Why? I asked, sounding a little testier than I had intended. What's going to change?
You'll meet other beings with whom you have more in common.
It was like my mother, always telling me I'd make a good friend at the next place we moved. But I knew better by now. The new guy with no friends is never an attractive prospect. Thanks, I told him. I stepped out of the observation lounge and into the corridor. And there I almost collided with Mr. Urch, the being from the weapons station whom I'd embarrassed in front of the captain. Like an idiot.
So it's the weapons master,
he grunted as he passed me. I hurried on, frightened, not wanting to mess things up any more than I already had. Then I stopped and turned back to him. I figured I had nothing else to lose. Mr. Urch, I called. He turned back to me, jutting out his snout to show his tusks and his sharp teeth.
What do you want?
I walked over to him, slowly, as though my legs were not working at their absolute best. You were being nice when you showed me how to work your station, and somehow I did okay, and I know I looked like I was trying to show you up. It was a dumb thing to do, and I'd like to apologize." He studied me for a moment, and then sniffed roughly through his large nose, and I felt the heat of his exhalation on my face.
"It's a mistake,"
he told me, showing me his teeth and moving his wild hog muzzle closer to my face.
"to read too much into the body language of a species with which you are unfamiliar."
Considering it seemed like he was about to gore me with the tusks he had happened to have sticking out of his face, I hoped that he was right. Okay, yeah, that's probably true.
"I am a Vauclair. We evolved from fierce predators. Species who evolved from herbivores and omnivores always at first mistake the body language of predator species. You, for example, think I am angry because you did well on the weapons console."
Perceptive and terrifying. A nice combination, I thought. "Well, aren't you?" He grunted.
"Pay attention to my words, not my teeth. No, I'm not angry. I like to see an applicant with your skill. It pleases me. And I will tell you something else. Vauclair are fairly new to the Confederation as well. 16 years ago, the first group of my species sent a delegation to Confederation Central, just as your species does now."
He seemed no less intimidating, but what he was saying made him less scary. Maybe the body language thing was worth thinking about, especially since what he said suggested that in 16 years, humans could be serving on a ship like this. I could be serving on a ship like this. "And now you're here," I said. "That's amazing."
"I was part of the delegation,"
he said, smacking his broad chest with his clenched fist.
"I was the random."
I stared, not sure what to say, but I was strangely moved. This creature that looked like a crazed warthog was reaching out to me.
"So, understand that rather than knock you down and use my tusks to rip out the entrails from your soft flesh, as you apparently fear, I would prefer to offer you my help,"
he said. He said it baring his teeth and looking like the former option was the one he really had his heart set on. But I believed he meant what he said. "Thanks, Mr. Urch, really, and I'm sorry for misreading you."
"No apology required,"
Urch said. He opened his jaws and showed me his alarmingly sharp teeth.
"I know there is much for you to learn, and we non-herbivores have to look after one another. I've just got off duty. If you wish, you can come with me to the crew mess and eat like a real spacefarer. Then I'll take you to the simulation room. You can learn a few more tricks on the weapons console."
I broke into a grin. "That'd be great."
"Look at that," he said, opening his jaw. "You bare your teeth like a Vauclair. I like you more already."